So today we're doing the session on equal opportunity and diversity, and we're doing learning outcome 2 today, to know the explanations of the origins of prejudice, stereotyping and oppression. And my name is Shazia Khan. So what we're going to look at a summary of what we did in the last session, which was yesterday's session. So we looked at the issue of what equality is, and if anyone can tell me in their own words what they think equality is after yesterday's session. What do you think equality is?
Treating everyone the same way by giving them equal opportunity.
Yes, treating everyone the same way and treating everyone equally and making sure that, you know, you don't discriminate against anyone. We then went on to look at what diversity is. And that's looking, trying to, you know, value people's differences and cultures and things. And then inclusion, we looked at what that was, that people are from different backgrounds and we have to be inclusive. So we'd have to look at things like, you know, their background, their educational system, their personality, if they're an introvert or an extrovert. We then went on to look at the importance of equality and diversity in the health and social care. What do you think it means when we look at why it's so important in health and social care? What should we be doing? Should we be looking at everyone in the health and social care, you know, looking at providing them equal opportunities? We should also be looking at diversity, so we should be looking at people's values, beliefs and cultures. We should also look at we also identified what the Equality Act was and why it was so important in regards to the UK law on protecting people against discrimination, harassment and victimization. We also looked at the Equality Act 2010 and it had protected characteristics. Does anyone remember them protected characteristics within the Act? What kind of things are discriminatory against the protected characteristics? So we have age.
Age, religion.
Yeah. What else?
Background.
Sex.
Yeah, I already mentioned sex.
Yeah.
I said sex, age.
Yeah.
Religion.
Yeah. So there's different things that are in the protected characteristics which we went through. We also looked at what stereotyping was, what labeling was, so attaching a label to an individual, and also looked at what oppression was and the importance of this within the health and social care profession, because it's so important that we identify things when we look at it from perspective of, you know, equality within the health and social care. It's like treating everyone equally, being able to, you know, meet the needs and differentiation between cultures and things like that, of patients. Also, you know, taking into account celebrations, traditions, things like that. Language is a big thing as well, and the fact is that we need to take these into account when identifying the issue around, you know, trying to not discriminate against anyone, because it's so important that we are treating everyone fairly and equally and not discriminating. And today we're going to be looking at learning outcome 2, which is to know explanations of the origins of prejudice, stereotyping and oppression. So key terminology: prejudice is an unjustified or incorrect attitude, usually negative towards an individual based solely on the individual's membership of a social group. For example, a person may hold prejudiced views towards a certain race or gender. So do we have this perception when we're treating people equally that you know, we shouldn't have these negative beliefs and these misconceptions, you know? What else can we be prejudiced against? Prejudice is having this, you know, this preconceived opinion about somebody in your head, you know, and it's wrong to have that prejudice. What else could we be prejudiced about? Any other examples anyone's got?
Maybe like at workplace, job opportunities.
Yeah. When we said this example about the person that holds a certain view about certain race or gender, what could that be? Oops, sorry. What could it be that we have prejudice about someone's gender or about their race?
Maybe like gender, maybe transgender,
Yeah.
homosexual, lesbian. Yeah.
So you could have a misconception over someone who's transgender in your mind. You may think, or you could have a misconception of someone who may be from a community, maybe from like someone from the Pakistani community, someone from the Arab community, you know, maybe have this misconception that everyone is the same. You know, people have a misconception. I will give you an idea of all young Asian boys drive a fast car. You know, they have this they have this misconception about prejudice about all young Asian boys having a nice flashy car. And you know, they have this misconception about maybe all Asian people maybe have curries. You know, these are kind of misconceptions, you know, of if you are against someone's race, or you're saying you have this misconception about people's race, you are identifying a negative thought about that person's race. It might be something that, you know, like you said about the gender thing. What could it be? Anyone else give me another example in not in regards to the trans bit? If you have a negative thought about females or males, what can it be? Could it be that all females don't know how to drive? Is that a misconception? Is that prejudiced? That all women drivers are bad drivers?
Prejudice.
Is that being prejudiced, that you're saying that all women drivers are bad drivers?
Yes, prejudice.
Yeah, it's prejudice, yeah. So you need to be careful that you don't have these negative views when you're working in the health and social care profession. You know, things like, oh, everyone that has maybe a health condition is like this or like that. You know, you should not have these misconceptions. Discrimination is the behavior or actions usually negative towards an individual or group of people, especially on the basis of sex, race, social class. Also, prejudice includes all three components of an attitude: affective, behavioral, and cognitive, whereas discrimination just involves behavior. Differences between prejudice and discrimination: a prejudiced person may not act on their own attitude, therefore someone can be prejudiced towards a certain group but not discriminate against. So they may have this misconception in their head, but they won't be the ones that would be doing anything. So prejudice only exists inside a person's head. Discrimination is how they apply their prejudice to a group of people. Being prejudiced is not a crime, but acting on it by discriminating against a class of people is illegal. Discriminating also can be a synonym for discerning. For example, a food critic can have discriminating palate for wine. You know, examples of discrimination means treating people differently from others. It isn't always unlawful. People are paid wages depending on their status and skills. However, there are certain reasons why employers discriminate against you by law. Do you think there's a lot of discrimination happening within a workplace?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah,
What kind?
sometimes.
Yeah.
Sorry, sometimes.
Yeah.
What kind of discrimination happens within a workplace?
Sometimes if you even want a holiday, they end up, there are some people that the manager will be favoring them and they get the
favoritism.
holidays that they want,
Favoritism, yeah, that does happen as well. But is that a form of discrimination? What are they doing there? Are they discriminating against you?
My former job, I've left that place, so.
Sorry?
My former job, I've left that job. There was always a problem with when the kids are off holiday.
Yeah.
Even though you've told them in advance, they end up messing your holiday up. Yeah, but I've left that job, yeah.
So what kind of discrimination do you think that can be? Do you think it was based on your ethnicity, on your race, on your religion? What do you think it could have been based on?
Yeah,
It can be ethnicity or direct discrimination.
Sorry, one at a time. We've got Ethy Wember.
Yes, I said it's either direct or ethnicity.
Indirect.
Direct discrimination.
But sometimes people are very clever with discriminating, aren't they?
Yes, some people are very clever for discrimination. They will pretend that they love you. And at the end of the day, you find out they are discriminated. They don't really love you. They are just pretending.
Yeah, another high form of discrimination to me is the British people, the white. They always discriminate the black.
Okay.
Especially at workplace.
I think it's to do with a race thing.
You say?
Do you think it's to do with a race thing?
Yeah, it's a race thing. It is.
Okay. And do you feel it happens a lot in the health and social care profession?
To me, it happens a lot because all the blacks there, the India, Pakistan, everyone is just complaining of the British. They always, cooperate within themselves just to put other people in trouble. One have to be very smart.
What do you think the form of discrimination is there?
To me, it's ethnicity discrimination.
Okay. Has anyone you were going to say something earlier?
It's like, for example, where I was working before. Our manager.
Yeah.
Because usually in my workplace then, if there's any maybe there's upcoming or promotion, or maybe there's going to be training, they usually send it to the manager. So the manager is going to inform us if anyone is having interest in what is coming up, want to change your role or anything. But where in my section, she never told us. And simply because most of us are black there.
Okay.
We are black. We only have maybe 2 whites among us.
Yeah.
And the blacks that is there, it's like some of us have certificate that is far better than the word white, those white. So she believes anything that comes, we will be the one benefit from that.
Yeah.
Not them. So she would decide not to tell us. She won't tell us anything. It's after that thing closed that we have information that, oh, it's been sent to you. That means you've not had. Then we'll say, right, we didn't have anything about that. You know? So
that's a form of discrimination.
It's discrimination because it's ethic because we are black.
Yeah.
And she believes.
From the ethnic discrimination, as they were mentioning earlier.
Yeah.
So do you think they're treating you, because we're going to look at racial discrimination, do you think they're treating you differently because of your colour or your race?
Yes.
So examples of discrimination here are racial discrimination, and you've got apartheid, literally meaning separateness, separating people. And this was a system of racial segregation that was enforced in South Africa from 1948 to 1994. Non-white people were prevented from voting and lived in separate communities. World War II in Germany and German-controlled lands, Jewish people had to wear yellow stars to identify themselves as Jews. Later, the Jews were placed in concentration camps by the Nazis. So in racial discrimination, anyone could not be treated differently from others because of their colour, race, nationality, ethnic or national origin, or for belonging to an Irish traveller group. Do you think that happens a lot, racial discrimination within a workplace? Do you think it happens quite a bit? Racial discrimination within a workplace?
Yes, it happens a lot.
Yeah. Yeah. And you know, if you know about racial discrimination, you're able to identify it yourself. And the next one is age discrimination. This is a type of discrimination against a person or groups on grounds of their age. So someone is being treated differently because of their age, and that's unfair as well, because you can't treat the elderly differently to the young. Gender discrimination in Western societies, while women are often discriminated against in the workplace, gender discrimination, men are often discriminated against in the home and family environments. For instance, after a divorce, woman receives primary custody of the children far more than the men. Women on average earn less than men for doing the same job. Gender discrimination occurs when a person is treated negatively or unequally based on their gender. It includes restricted access to education, jobs, healthcare, unequal pay, sexual harassment, and much more. And some examples of gender discrimination are paying women less for the same work that what we've just mentioned than men. You know, that's a big thing that, you know, they tend to pay women more, men more than this for women. Another example is restricting education access for girls. So, you know, causing inequalities and making them not have an education. Another example, discriminating against trans people in the health and social care profession. So you've got lots of trans, and people do still discriminate against people from the transgender. What types of prejudice are there? Prejudice can exist wherever there's any kind of difference between people. So prejudice based on gender is called sexism. Both women and men can be victims of this, but it's more common for women to be the victims. Prejudice is based on the national grouping or race of a person is known as racism. Colour prejudice is the most common form of racism, as skin colour is a sign of the race a person belongs to. It is possible for racism to occur between people of the same skin colour, connected to their prejudice based on ethnicity. There are forms of prejudice that combine religion and race, and it can be difficult to distinguish between the two elements. Prejudice towards Jews is called anti-Semitism. Prejudice towards Muslims is called Islamophobia. Prejudice towards homosexuals called homophobia. When people young or old suffer from prejudice because of their age, this is called ageism. Other main categories of prejudice are concerned with social class, disability, lifestyle choices, and appearance. And there shouldn't be any form of prejudice, but it does happen within the workplace. 2.1, evaluate explanations of the origins of prejudice, stereotyping, and oppression. Causes and origins of prejudice. The reasons for prejudice vary. Some are related to historical events. Prejudice is often based on ignorance. The solution is education, but many people choose to remain ignorant as their prejudice can make them feel superior. Victims of a particular kind of bullying may go to and become bullies themselves. In the same way, if a person has been a victim of prejudice, their chance they themselves will become prejudiced against others. Do you think prejudice is a form of bullying? And has anyone experienced it in their workplace? Anyone? Anyone got? Do you think bullying is a form of prejudice?
Yes.
Yeah, because you
Yes.
think you're below them.
Yeah.
Yeah, because
Like your
because
managers.
they look you down that you're not capable of doing something.
Yeah, they
bullying.
look down at you, they
Yeah,
bully
yeah.
you. Like I think one of the ladies, I can't remember who said that she wasn't getting her holidays because of, you know, the fact that they were being every time she was asking for holidays, she wasn't given the holidays. you know, so that could be a form of bullying. A person's upbringing may cause them to become prejudiced. So if parents have prejudice of their own, there's a chance that these opinions will be passed on to the next generation. Our one bad experience with a person from a particular group can cause the person to think all people from that group is the same. This is called stereotyping and can lead to prejudice. The media has a powerful influence on people in the 21st century and can sometimes be responsible for promoting a stereotyping of a particular group. Scapegoating is an example of specific type of prejudice. A person or group can be blamed for the sins or wrongs of another or group. For example, in the 1930s, Nazi Germany Jews were made scapegoats for the country's economic difficulties. So there's prejudice against, in that diagram, we identified sexuality, gender, race, ethnicity, disability, religion, and age. So people have prejudice in their, you know, in themselves. Sometimes they don't realize, but it's negative thoughts, you know, about things. And sometimes, like you said, there's issues of racism within the workplace, and some of you have experienced it, you know, the fact that based on the color of your skin, you're not getting something, whereas the other people are. So, you know, forms of prejudice exist in different forms. And, you know, it's difficult to try to avoid this because, you know, it's been such a big issue for centuries, and it's never. Do you think people's perceptions is changing, or do you think it's still at the back of the head?
You know, I think it's changing. It's changing.
And what do you think?
Everybody's.
Why do you think it's changing? Do you think there's laws in place for it? That's why.
Yeah, there's laws. There's laws in place, and some people are standing for themselves now.
They're a bit scared, aren't they? Cases of discrimination.
Some people are not scared anymore. They're speaking out.
Yeah, no, I meant the companies and organizations are scared.
Yeah,
that
they're scared. Yeah, yes, exactly.
Because they could be, you know, they could be taken to court for doing this. You know,
exactly.
It's not something that they'll take lightly. You know, hate crime and things like that.
Yeah.
You know, it's not something that the country will take lightly anymore. There's laws in place, the Equality Act, you know, 2010, the protected characteristics. You discriminate against because of someone, because of their religion, because of what they wear. Because there's been cases of, you know, people wearing the headscarf or the head dressing, and they've been, you know, discriminated against in regards to religious dress.
Yeah.
You know, there's been people that have worn a cross and they've been discriminated against because they're not allowed to wear jewelry. But it's their religious belief. So, you know, as an individual, we shouldn't have any negative thoughts or any prejudice about anyone from, you know, different cultures. But the form of discrimination is still there. People are discriminated against because of their age. Disability is a big one, that people tend to not get jobs because they're disabled. And that's so unfair, because we are a society that should be offering equal opportunity. You know, they should be offering any sorts of equal opportunity. So we shouldn't discriminate people on the basis of their disability. If they're in a wheelchair, you know, and we don't give them the job, and we give someone who's able to walk, not in a wheelchair, are we discriminating against that person, even though they've got same, you know, same educational background, they've got same experience?
Yes, that's discrimination.
Yeah. It doesn't necessarily mean they're not able to do the job just because they're in a wheelchair. It's just that we have to, you know, we have to take in mind that we are employing someone. And the Disability Discrimination Act, you know, they would be able to sue under that act. Theories of prejudice. So there are many theories of prejudice that have been proposed through the years. The four most common known are social identity theory, the scapegoat theory, the authoritarian personality theory, and the culture theory. These theories attempt to grasp where prejudice comes from and what it looks like in specific individuals. All theories involve placing blame on a minority culture or background. Conflict theory also plays a role in prejudice behavior when resources are limited and someone from a minority background receives resources. Often the majority culture would lash out. So we're going to look at the theories now. First one, social identity theory. This is created by Henry Tajfel, and it establishes that a person's sense of self comes from their overarching group background. People are put into groups for everything. A family is a group, the socio-economic class is a group, and the social school class is a group. Tajfel believed that these groups that people are assigned to shape who people are and who they become. Because of this belief and the groups have happened naturally, stereotyping is part of normal brain functioning and is how people understand things. People naturally look for similarities and differences within groups. The in-group is what is considered normal for a person, and the out-group is what is considered different. Basically, it is us versus them. It is though this us versus them mentality that discrimination is formed. The in-group will seek to find fault in the out-group to alleviate their own status, become more appealing and increase their self-esteem. Is it good to have these in-groups then? Because you have a perception of the out-group. Do you understand? So you consider them as different. So do you think this social identity theory is not good to have in a group? I don't think it's a good thing to have when you look at the social identity theory, because I think having one group of people and then having another group of people outside is saying that we are different. And we're not trying to prove that, are we? We're trying to identify that everyone is equal. So that's when the discrimination and the stereotyping starts becoming, you know, a normal thing. So we could have a group of people saying that, you know, we do this like this, and then another group of people saying we do it differently. So that is building stereotypical images, and that's the social identity theory. Then we've got the scapegoat theory. The scapegoat theory is based on the idea of a scapegoat. Is defined by the idea of placing the blame on someone else. In terms of sociology, it is placing the blame on an entire people group. A scapegoat is used to take the blame for problems that they have had nothing to do with. The scapegoat is never perceived as powerful. This causes the person using to scapegoat to be a higher position, whereas the scapegoat is in a lower position as a replacement for the weakness of the person using the scapegoat. Typically, the use of scapegoat makes people prejudiced against the scapegoat. When the scapegoat is a portion of society that may have a different background, inherent bias against people of that background is created. The authoritarian personality theory. And this authoritarian personality theory is built on the idea that specific people have an authoritarian personality that makes them rigid in their ideas, aggressive to things that are different and unwilling to comply. They often linearly obey authority and firmly believe in structure. In this theory, prejudice is created because the individual despises anything different from what they are used to. Culture theory is a big one because, you know, lots of people tend to stereotype this with how an individual looks. Culture theory, also known as cultural transmission theory, states that prejudice is inherent in culture through undue influences and that children can be taught to be prejudiced through cultural norms. Individuals are flooded with information that symbolizes biases or encourages stereotypes against other cultures. For example, the idea of an angry black woman is portrayed throughout the media. Do you think that's quite a good example? The idea of an angry black woman is portrayed throughout the media. What do you think? Do you think that's an image that everyone has within the workforce as well?
No. It's portrayed through media. I don't want to sound that like. I don't sound that side.
Sorry?
I don't sort of sound that much.
You don't what?
I said I don't understand that much.
No, but it's, you know, the fact is that if the idea is that you've got an angry black woman and that's portrayed throughout the media, that gives the implication that all black women are naturally angry. Is that a stereotype that the media has portrayed into people?
Yes, a stereotype, because not
Yeah, it's
all of them
yeah.
are angry.
Yeah. That gives the implication that black women are naturally angry when it's a prejudiced stereotype perpetrated by the media and is now ingrained in the young society that is partaking of the media. So naturally, prejudice will develop based on incorrect information. So the media is there that and it encourages people to have this perception. For example, an example which is quite a big one that the media identifies is that all Muslims are terrorists. Do you think that's a thing that the media tries to ingrain into people's minds? What does anyone think of that? Anyone? Are you, Claude?
No, I don't think they should say that Muslims are
No.
terrorists.
Yeah,
no.
but they put this perception. This is what I'm saying. They put this perception into people's minds, don't they?
No.
That everyone is like this.
No.
So it may be based on incorrect information, but the media has a big influence on people's minds.
Yeah.
Yeah, it influences people, even though the information that they may be portraying is incorrect, but the media is there to, you know, try to ingrain that information into society and say, you know, these people are wrong. People from this culture are wrong, even though it might be a misconception. So the media is a lot to blame for certain things. And I believe that 100%.
Yes, that's true.
Yeah. Prejudice examples. So having a negative view of people that are different from the majority culture is an example of prejudice. Thinking that a young black man in a hoodie is probably engaging in illegal activities, prejudice. Observing a Muslim man facing east and praying at noon and being angry is prejudice. So you could imagine anyone wearing a hoodie, you know, you think that the media has portrayed that as you being prejudiced about anyone wearing a hoodie and they are going to go and rob a bank or rob a chemist, you know. You shouldn't have that misconception about people's dress as well. People can dress as they want. You know, you have that right of freedom, but, you know, people have this misconception that people who are wearing a hoodie and it's a young black man is going to, you know, do something wrong. And that's prejudice. So, but people do have it, you know, it may seem wrong to you lot for bringing up me to bring up these examples, but if you live in the society we live in, people do have their misconceptions. And it's because of social media. In summary, prejudice is a negative attitude against a group of people based on their background, and discrimination is a negative action taken against a group of people based on their background. There are many different theories on where prejudice comes from. Cultural transmission theory states that people are taught to be prejudiced through social norms and media. Social identity theory, as we've looked at earlier, states that people become prejudiced towards an out group to become more appealing to the in group and increase their self-esteem. Some people are believed to have authoritarian personalities that are rigidly structured, obedient to authority, and black and white thinkers. That thinking prohibits them from acknowledging the goodness of other cultures and backgrounds that differ from their own. Scapegoat theory states that the majority of cultures need someone to blame for their mistakes and failures, so they blame a less powerful group. Lastly, conflict theory states that when resources or rewards are scarce and the minority has equal or more access to them, the majority culture will become more prejudiced and potentially aggressive. Stereotyping definition, sociology. A stereotype is a cognitive bias based on an assumption about all the people who identify with a specific social group, despite any individual differences within the group. Stereotypes often form as society develops and conclusions about social roles. For example, women are often stereotyped as caregivers who work in the household, and this stereotype formed due to the fact that women have traditionally been underrepresented in the workforce. But while stereotypes may be based on observations about everyone's day-to-day life, it's important to question why certain social groups have been held in a certain social groups. Positive against negative stereotypes. Like prejudice, stereotypes can be positive or negative. Negative stereotypes tell us, for example, that all Mexican American women are maids, since they often seek work in the hospitality industry in which they are assigned housekeeping duties despite any advanced qualifications. These negative stereotypes are not only problematic in definition, but often have real consequences. For example, because women are stereotyped as homemakers, they have harder time getting a job, and when they do, they're often denied equal pay. So the fact that it identifies that a woman is less employable than a man. Positive stereotypes. Positive stereotypes also have problematic outcomes. For example, the model minority stereotype is applied to the Asian Americans since they have achieved success in the US per the mainstream idea of what success looks like. But despite the positive connotation of succeeding, the recipients of this stereotyping often have negative responses. Not all the Asian Americans are traditionally successful, as this is overgeneralized observation ignores individuals' differences. Furthermore, this stereotype places the stereotypes. Furthermore, this stereotype places an exuberant amount of pressure on Asian Americans who feel they're expected to perform at an extraordinarily high level. So the expectation for these Asian Americans is that, you know, because there's so much positive responses, they are having to do that and put more pressure on themselves. Asian Americans also experience negative stereotypes. Thus, when all defined as model minority outgroups are ignoring and devaluing the inequality structures that must struggle against to succeed in mainstream society. Why is intersectionality important? Whether positive or negative, it's important to remember that stereotypes do not represent all people from a specific social group. Individuals have unique characteristics that must be recognized. Moreover, intersectionality holds immense importance when it comes to categorizing individuals. That is to say, a Black male who identifies as a transgender will certainly have different life experience than a Black male who identifies as a cisgender. People's social groups are interconnected, meaning that each individual has their own experiences, and those experiences often result in distinct cases of oppression and discrimination. Defining discrimination. Discrimination is a behavioral bias that occurs when individuals or in groups take actions based on negative prejudice they have towards outgroups. Discrimination is a type of prejudicial treatment based on a person's social identity. For example, if a person has a name that is typically associated with countries in Central or America, they will be denied a job interview simply due to the name listed at the top of the resume. In this case, they have been discriminated against on negative prejudice employees have about their nationality, ethnic group, language, or immigration status. Do you think that's a big one based on your name? Do you think you wouldn't get a job interview based on your name?
Yes, it happens.
That was a big yes. Why do you think it happens?
Yeah, it happens because sometimes they just say, oh, the name, you know, even when you go for the interview, this it still happen. Some people they have it's only they won't say it out.
Yeah.
When you went for an interview and they realize you are from this side, you are from that side, you are not from there.
I agree with
qualified, you're not qualified to have that job. It's like when you go to freeway, even if you want to rent a house now, if you go with white people to view a house, forget about it, you won't get it.
Yeah. I agree with you. I agree with you 100% on that. The fact that a name does have an impact on it and getting a job, and it does. Origins of stereotyping. So outside of printing, the first reference to stereotype was in 1850 as a noun that meant image perpetrated without change. However, it was not until 1922 that stereotype was first used in the modern psychological sense by American journalist Walter Lippmann, in his work Public Opinion. In social psychology, a stereotype is a generalized belief about a particular category of people. It is an expectation that people might have about every person of a particular group. The type of expectation can vary. It can be, for example, an expectation about the group's personality, preferences, appearance, or ability. Stereotypes are sometimes overgeneralized, inaccurate, and resistant to new information, but can sometimes be accurate. While such generalizations about groups of people may be useful when making quick decisions, they may be erroneous when applied to a particular individuals and among the reasons of prejudicial attitudes. Early theories of stereotyping, early theories of stereotype content proposed by social psychologists such as Gordon Allport assumed that stereotypes of outgroups reflected uniform antipathy. For instance, Katz and Braley argued that in their classic 1933 study that ethnic stereotypes were uniformly negative. By contrast, a newer model of stereotype content theories that stereotypes are frequently ambivalent and vary along with two dimensions, warmth and competence. Warmth and competence are respectively predicted by the lack of competition and status. Groups that do not compete within group for the same resources, for example, college space, are perceived as warm, whereas a high status, economically or educationally successful groups are considered competent. The groups within each of the four combinations of high and low levels of warmth and competence elicit distinct emotions. The models explains the phenomenon that some outgroups are admired but disliked, whereas others are liked but disrespected. This model was empirically tested on the variety of national and international samples and was found to be reliably predict stereotype content. Origins of oppression. The word oppressed comes from the Latin oppressus, past participe of oppremium, to press against or to squeeze or to suffocate. Oppression is a malicious or unjust treatment or exercise of power under the guise of governmental authority. Oppression refers to discrimination when the unjust does not target and may not directly afflict everyone in society, but instead targets or disproportionately impacts specific groups of people. Can you give me an example of oppression? What do you think it is? And when would it occur? When would oppression occur? Like we said, it's under governmental authority, discriminating against a group of people.
Let me say at workplace.
Yeah.
To me, even while you are trying your best to do everything, but they are not recognizing it, they still complain and find fault in you. That's oppression.
Yeah, and in regards to different countries, oppression could exist where, for example, I worked with a lot of clients from Zimbabwe, and there were some supporters of the MDC and some ZANU-PF, and they were being oppressed. The MDC, at that time when Robert Mugabe was in power, the MDC people that supported the MDC were being oppressed because they were told that they have to, support ZANU-PF. And at that time, the oppression was quite badly in Zimbabwe. Now I think it's limited a little bit because Robert Mugabe is no longer there. But I think at that time when I dealt with lots of clients, the oppression was an issue with the governmental authority, where they were trying to say that people should, you should be part of ZANU-PF, even though they weren't part of ZANU-PF, they wanted to support MDC. So it did have an impact, and government authorities did support that. So there were issues like that. And then I remember dealing with clients, I think it was from Sudan, Somalia, somewhere like that, and it was people from the Tutsi tribe and from the Hutu tribe, and there was the form of discrimination there, and that was through governmental authority as well. So you could see they do have an impact on, oppression does play a big role in government departments trying to, show their power. Okay, so we've finished the session now. These are some of the references that have been used for today's session that you could refer to and link to. Okay, and then the next session we've got, which is also refer again to your ebooks. Any questions, go to Learn or Work. Has anyone got any questions for today's session before we finish off?
No.
And thank you for your patience today as well.
Thank
Has
you.
anyone got
Thank
Thank
any
you.
questions?
Here we are fine.
Has anyone got any questions before we
No.
finish the session off?
No.
No
No?
question.
Yeah?
No
No
question.
Yeah?
No.
No
Okay,
questions, Porter. Okay, so I will thank you for your patience and thank you for attending today's session. And I will see you in the next session, which is Learning Outcome 3 next Saturday. Okay?
Okay, thank
Thank
you.
Sorry
you.
about today.
Thank
Sorry?
Yeah, because we thought there was no link for it. Sorry.
No,
Sorry
don't
for
worry about it.
disrupting
Don't
you.
worry about that. The link I think Raman put in, and I think Claude put the link in, which actually was really helpful. But make
Yeah.
sure you can get onto next week's if you try to link onto it. Okay?
Yeah.
All right,
Thank you.
thank
So
you.
we'll see you.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye bye. See you next week.
Bye. See you next
Bye.
week. Bye,
Bye.
everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.